Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and we're going to take a look at a very interesting phone, which isn't so interesting to probably some people, but what makes this particular device interesting is it's got a Sapphire display. A Sapphire crystal display is the first to come to market on this device. It's rumored to come to market on the iPhone 6, so this makes it pretty interesting, as we thought maybe they wouldn't be able to mass produce something like this. But this display is probably extremely difficult to scratch, and we'll test that out and see what kind of durability we have here. But let's first go over the price and specs, and then we'll move on to some of the tests. So this phone itself isn't very impressive. It's middle of the road, but it's pretty inexpensive. It's $50 with a 2-year contract and has some decent specs given its price. Internally, we have a Qualcomm Snapdragon 400 processor running at 1.4 gigahertz with a quad-core ARM Cortex-A7 CPU. We also have an Adreno 305 GPU, 2 gigabytes of RAM, 16 gigabytes of built-in storage, and expandable up to 32 gigabytes with micro SD. We also have an internal battery that's not removable, that's 3100 milliamp hours, good for about 20 hours of talk time and 15 days of standby. The display itself is 4.5 inches, running 720p, and is 326 pixels per inch for its pixel density. On the front, we also have a forward-facing 2-megapixel camera. On the back, we have an 8-megapixel camera, records 1080p at 30 frames per second with an LED flash. You can see the back is pretty rugged. It's very, very heavy-duty feeling. And on the side here, we have a little slot for our SD and SIM card. It's got a little seal around it. It's really nice as far as that goes. It's got a seal to keep it waterproof, which is another thing I forgot to mention. The phone's waterproof, and we'll test that as well, up to 6 feet deep. And then on the side, we have a camera button. On the top, we have a power sleep wake button, a volume button. It's not a volume up and down, and we've got volume up and down here with a mute, or a programmable button rather. And then on the top, we have a sealed 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, another seal right there. Then on this side, or on the bottom, we have our micro USB, again sealed with a microphone as well. Pretty heavy duty phone. Feels very nice in the hand. It feels very rugged, and on the back you probably won't need a case, even if they make a case for this. It's pretty ruggedized. You have physical buttons on the bottom, home, back, and your app management, and then you've got some speakers on the bottom as well with some screws around the edge. It feels and looks very rugged. Feels like you're probably not going to break it. Now, one of the advantages of Sapphire is it's super hard and super difficult to scratch because of that. There's not too much on the planet that's hard enough to scratch this. Maybe a diamond would scratch it, some other things are along those lines, but for everyday use, things like steel and things in your pocket, some change, shouldn't scratch this at all. Now, scratch resistant doesn't mean it can't take it can take an impact. Technically, because it's more strengthened, it's actually a little more brittle when it comes to dropping. So dropping this on something could have a very bad effect. Sapphire itself has been used on watch faces and even on the iPhone 5S's Touch ID button and on the back camera to keep it from scratching. And those have seemed to hold up pretty well, but that doesn't mean you can't shatter this. So let's take a look at its waterproof abilities and its anti-scratch ability. Overall, it should be a pretty good phone as far as that goes. And for the price, it's got some decent specs. And if you're someone that's rough on your phone, this might be a good option for you. I thought we'd start off testing this display by trying to scratch it. Now, I normally wouldn't do that, but since the only thing that really in theory should be able to scratch Sapphire is a diamond or something of diamond hardness, I thought we'd try a normal kitchen steak knife, and then I found this old rusty nail. So we'll start with these, and I have so far not been able to scratch it, and in fact I actually dinged it up here on the plastic a little bit, but the display itself is intact. So let's start with the nail, and I'll just try and scratch it. Now, you can actually shatter Sapphire, so you got to be careful there. But you can see I'm pressing extremely hard. So let's see if we have anything. And nothing at all. No scratches. Try with this steak knife. In fact, I rubbed some of the rust off the end of that old nail. So here's the blade. I got to be careful. This is really sharp. I don't know if you can hear that. probably dulling the tip of the knife. Let's take a look. Let me wipe this off here. And not a single scratch. There's nothing on it. That didn't leave a single mark, and I scratched that pretty hard as well. Not only is the phone scratch resistant because of its sapphire display, it's also waterproof up to 6 feet, as you can see here. All of those protective elements also keep it dust-free with an IP68 certification as well. The next test I actually did on the corner of a step where the concrete was broken off from age. After all those tests, the phone has held up fine. It works well. We'll turn it on here. You can see we can unlock it. And one thing I didn't mention before, but this is basically just Android. It's 4.4.2, and it works just as well. But we care more about the display and the sapphire screen. And as you can see, you really can't see any scratches. Only in the very brightest of light did we see any scratches at all. I know it looked like it in the video, but actually most of that just wiped off. In fact, I just ran it under the sink since it's waterproof. So everything works fine. It's working well. It feels well. It did nick the plastic a little bit here when I scratched it against a couple things, but overall it works great. It's very impressive that I don't even know that it's scratched. Under these lights, I can't see any scratches whatsoever. So if there are scratches, it's only under the very, very brightest of lights. I really don't see any. You can't feel any or anything at all. So let me know what you think of this phone and of the Sapphire display in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.